Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and to include extraneous material on this measure.
Without objection.
I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, Hamas's October 7th massacre was as cruel, barbaric, and bloody as anything I have ever seen. Hamas unleashed pure evil on Israel that day. The Hamas terrorists filmed themselves committing brutal atrocities because they were so proud of their barbaric acts. In fact, in just hours, they murdered 1,200 innocent people and took over 250 hostages, including Americans. And I say this to remind my colleagues of the moral clarity that we, as a body, felt in the aftermath of these brutal attacks. It was obvious to us then that Hamas was ruthless. It was obvious to us that Hamas needed to be eradicated to ensure Israel's security. And it was obvious to us that Hamas would fight dirty and use innocent civilians as human shields. And it was obvious to us that Israel had no choice but to win this war and end the perpetual terrorist threat. We all, Republicans and Democrats, spent those weeks talking about our steadfast support for Israel, our ironclad commitment. In fact, Mr. Meeks and I introduced a bipartisan resolution condemning Hamas in support of Israel, which had more co-sponsors than any other resolution in the history of the Congress. However, today, I'm deeply disappointed that for some in this country and for the administration, that moral clarity has faded, that their ironclad commitment apparently is not, in fact, ironclad. In an about-face, the Biden administration is now withholding critical arms necessary for Israel to win this war. This administration wants to dictate how Israel executes the war that they were thrust into. They did not ask for this war. They did not start this war. Hamas started this war. Just recently, though, President Biden said, quote, "If they go into Rafah, I'm not supplying the weapons, period," end of quote. That would be similar for us, Madam Speaker, to say during World War II, my father's war, quote, "You can invade all the way up to Berlin, but you can't go into Berlin to finish the job." Imagine if we'd done that with our allies back then. Israel is in a fight for its very existence. And this administration's public break with Israel has only made negotiations and victory more difficult. Rafah is the final key military objective to complete the mission against Hamas. Israel has effectively eradicated 19 battalions throughout Gaza, yet 4 remain in Rafah. This is the last stage of the military operation, and it keeps getting delayed and delayed and delayed. We know that Hamas is exploiting the ceasefire and using the negotiation process just to buy more time. Hamas has established a network of tunnels that total over 300 miles in Gaza. These tunnels of terror are where they are holed up, ready to strike Israel at the first opportunity. Their use of tunnels is why Israel must use these larger bombs to destroy their command and control centers and eliminate the terrorists that find refuge in them. And by the way, contrary to what's been said publicly, these bombs, when applied with the JDAM kits, can become precision-guided weapons. Precision means just that, precise. It goes straight to the target without collateral damage. And it does indeed protect innocent civilians. We know that Yahya Sinwar, the head of Hamas, is somewhere around these tunnels, and taking him out is critical to defeating Hamas. Madam Speaker, as the saying goes, war is hell. War is horrific. War is messy. Nobody wants war. But Israel did not start this war. Hamas did. And sadly, civilian casualties are part of urban warfare. Israel has limited this number greatly and is opening all routes for humanitarian assistance. This, despite the fact that Hamas are the ones who use human shields, hide behind hospitals and schools, and put civilians in harm's way. It was Hamas that destroyed the Erez checkpoint on October 7th, significantly impeding aid from getting into Gaza. And since then, they have repeatedly attacked another checkpoint that serves as a major artery of aid into Gaza. Egypt also is currently delaying aid through the Rafah checkpoint. But just the other day, I saw a video of Hamas killing their own people, Palestinian children, simply trying to get food out of the trucks as they gun down their own people. Until Israel finishes the last major operation to remove Hamas from power, to defeat the remaining battalions that are in Rafah, we will never have the peaceful resolution that everybody wants. For until Rafah is destroyed and Hamas is destroyed, we will not be able to get to the peace talks with the Saudis and Israel and the other Arab nations that everyone is so optimistic about. I can only think of one purpose to withhold these weapons. This administration is more concerned about a small vocal wing of activists than the ironclad commitment that they talked about to stand by Israel. Under this administration, I've noticed a disturbing trend, a trend where we turn our backs on our allies and fall short of the promises we make. That is why this legislation is so important. It will ensure the weapons are delivered to Israel, and it will reassure our allies that when America makes a commitment, we keep it. For think about this, Madam Speaker, what kind of a message is this sending both to our allies and friends and our adversaries and enemies? To our allies, it sends a message of we cannot be trusted. And to our adversaries, it sends a message that they no longer fear us. It does not send a message of deterrence. It sends a message of weakness that invites conflict, aggression, and now, yes, war. For imagine if Iran cut off its weapons to Hezbollah and cut off its weapons to the Houthi rebels. What would be said of Iran? What would be our impression? They believe they have achieved victory, Madam Speaker, without a shot fired, a victory handed to them by this administration, tying the hand of Israel, one hand behind its back, as it moves into the final stage of this war to complete its final mission. Prime Minister Netanyahu says, I will do this alone if I have to. He should not have to do this alone. We need to stand with our ally Israel, stand with her, and stand with her to defeat this terrorist organization, Hamas, and bring a final closure and a peaceful resolution to the Middle East. And with that, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Texas reserves.